rated as one of the worst schools in Canada. How does Canada's Flight Centre really stack up nowadays? And is it really as bad as the documentaries and things like that done on it? Let's find out. Hello my friends, I'm Adam. Welcome back to Late Departure. I'm continuing on my journey today, learning more about the various flight schools around Vancouver, and today I have the honor of talking about possibly one of the worst reviewed or worst rated flight schools, maybe of all time. I don't know, there are probably worse ones, but I really wanted to see whether or not the bad reviews have held up until this day, what current students think about everything that's going on. And the thing is, what you read online mostly is not true. Sometimes you get a little bit of truth there that you have to kind of pay attention to, but mandatory plane break. But anyways, I found it extremely valuable to talk to real students who actually are learning at some of these places. And so I was able to meet a few students. Some of them reached out to me, and I was happy to learn about sort of what the situation was there. So starting at the very beginning here, so what was the plane and instructor availability like? This is always the most important thing, because if you want to learn how to fly, you got to get in the air. So the students said that one of the biggest benefits of CFC is that they have a really diverse fleet, lots of aircraft. They have a bunch of 152s, 172s. They had a decent amount of instructors, or at least they currently do. And it was easy to see the booking schedule. And, for the most part, that's important. It seemed that it was on an average amount of time for bookings. I think for these students, they say that currently it's not too long of a wait. If you're booking for stuff, it looks like it's somewhere between like 1 to 2 weeks, a little bit down from 2 to 4 weeks, which looks kind of like the average in industry right now. In terms of whether or not they try to force some kind of supplemental materials onto you, these students said they don't. They do have a package that you can buy, but that's pretty much standard in almost every school. Every school has a package that includes the standard textbooks, like from the ground up, and the flight training manual and all those kinds of things. So far so good here. By the way, if you're curious why I keep looking down this direction, it's because I have my laptop on the table here with all the data I have summarized from all the interviews. So I hope you don't mind me looking down here every once in a while. Now, in terms of them forcing some kinds of ratings or trying to get students maybe to do some ratings they hadn't initially planned on, it does seem to be a little bit of the case. The management seems to push for people to pursue some more ratings. And these students said that, it really does feel very much like a business. They're trying to make money, of course. Like, again, trying to be objective here. Most of these places are for-profit institutions, so they want to make money. That's the point of their business, right? But the only unfortunate side is this place, similar to one of the other schools we talked about, it seems to be that they care a bit more about the money and really kind of pushing students through than they do about kind of caring for the students. Unfortunately, again, this is not too uncommon. And the reason for this, they said, was that a lot of the instructors there are really bent on hour building. Like, they're really keeping those schedules super tight, getting students in, getting them out, so that they can maximize their hours. And again, this isn't particularly something telling about the school specifically, because this is such a broad case. Like, that almost all the flight instructors out there are trying to build hours, except for maybe some of the ones right now who are furloughed from their airlines, who are just instructing so that they can keep their currency up and things like that, or that they just love to fly. That's really the best type of instructor to have right there. So in terms of making the students pay for extra classroom time or making ground time, this one was kind of interesting. So the students I talked with said that this school does the absolute bare minimum. The ground school was minimum. They said that for them, the training didn't really feel adequate because, they were told to do stuff. They weren't given enough notice ahead of time for some of the things that they were supposed to prepare. So some of the students said, like they didn't even feel confident about their private pilots exam. The ones that passed, some of them said that they didn't feel like they really should have even passed that exam just because they were so underprepared for it. And the problem with this is that sometimes it seems that the school seems to compromise safety, which for me is a big red flag. And so, for example, some of the students said on certain days when the instructors have really tight schedules, the instructors would tell the students to just get into the airplane and go up without even doing a walk around, which is really, really bad practice. You should always do a walk around, always check out the plane, because you don't know what might have happened. Maybe someone did a rough landing on the last flight or something. That's a really, really bad thing. So for these students, this apparently was a fairly common occurrence, and a lot of them did not feel safe at all because of this. And the bottom line is, when you repeat this kind of unsafe practice, if you don't get into these good habits, these good routines, like Jason Miller from the Finer Points, a really great flight pilot podcast there, always says, you have to build up good routines. You have to build up good habits to be a good pilot. And to do that, you need to do the procedures properly. You need to follow the rules. You need to get into the flow. And if you get into a bad flow, that could jeopardize your safety. In the worst case, you could die. You could cause other people to get injured or die. It's really, really bad. So this was, for me, a really big red flag about the school. Everything up until this point sounded pretty standard, though, until this was a little bit over the line. In terms of promising flight jobs, they didn't promise any flight jobs there. That wasn't something on the table. So that's good. They weren't trying to get people in the door by making false promises. Now, what about the maintenance? This is where things got really sketchy. So a lot of the students said that it was a mixed bag. Some of the airplanes were better kept than others. Everyone wanted to fly a certain aircraft because it was good. Some aircraft went through so much oil and if you're paying attention to your studies, well, I'm doing it right now in my ground school, learning about oil usage. If you're using too much oil, that's not a good thing. There might be something wrong. There might be a leak in the oil, or you might be getting, I don't know, some kind of detonation or something that's burning the oil, or something that's getting the oil through the system a lot faster than it should. And the maintenance guys, when they asked the maintenance were like, oh, it's all good. And that just strikes fear into my heart. That sounds absolutely terrible. They said the interiors of the planes were all ripped up. Things were falling apart. But the avionics were okay, which I guess is an important thing there. Yes, the avionics were okay. They said the biggest thing that they kind of joked about when they're doing stuff in the school is that when you look on the outside, the paint jobs look really nice, and then you get into the plane and you're like, oh my God, that's not good at all. Now the next one, which I haven't come across so far in all of the interviews that I've done with all the students from various schools, is when you go to the school the first time, do they show you just the show pony? And do they use that to get you in the door and sort of let you think that that's the plane you're going to be flying in? And this is the first school that I've actually heard that this actually happens at. So the students were saying, at the beginning, they show you the nicer airplanes, they tour you around in the flight school, but when they actually take you out, oh, plane break. And very cool, rainbow halo around the sun. All right, let's get back into it here. Yeah, so when they take you out for the first time, apparently they take you out in the nice planes, but once they start, and this is the quote, once they start, they put us into the crap boxes. And so everyone always wanted to fly those planes that were the safe planes, and for good reason. Like certain planes are safe, everyone's gonna wanna fly those planes, and then they feel super unsafe when they don't get into those planes. And the student said, even if you want to see the story, just look at the CADORs, and those are sort of the violations that are submitted on behalf of certain people or planes or schools or things like that. And they said, if you check that out, you'll see a lot of very interesting stuff, which is a little worrisome for me as a prospective flight student here. So the next thing, which again is really important to me, is does the school make an effort to help the students achieve their goals, help them kind of follow their training plan, help them get to where they're trying to get. And these students that I talked with, collectively, they said that they felt that the school could have been more helpful with the training plan, even with preparing the flights. So a lot of the instructors, they would be, they'd say, well, have you read up on this? Maybe something that wasn't even assigned before, and the students say no, unfortunately, like that wasn't what was assigned. And the instructors would say, go read it for 15 minutes and then we'll go up. And they wouldn't get a full debrief. Sometimes they get a texted debrief after the flight because the instructors were just so busy. Now, I just want to be clear that this kind of is coming across that the instructors there are really not great, or they're not doing their jobs properly or something like that. But what they talked about is that for the most part, it was because of the management. So I wouldn't, if you see this kind of stuff going on, and it happens, of course, at all different flight schools, like I said, all pilots, all flight instructors, they're trying to build hours so that a lot of them, so they can go on and fly commercially. But in this case, a lot of, like the management wanted them to keep the flights tight, wanted to get out the planes, wanted to make more money, basically. That seemed to be the bottom line. And so the students said, for the most part, like they were shocked when they saw how the management treated the flight instructors and treated the students. There were people in the management, I'm not going to mention any names, of course, because I want to make sure that people remain anonymous here. But there was a person who would be a higher upper manager who would routinely scream at the instructors in front of the students in the main building, would scream at students, would scream at other staff, at the dispatcher. They said that this person was actually really nice when you meet them personally, but just there was another side of that person that they saw, and that just sounds really unprofessional to me. That sounds like maybe that manager, that upper level person is, they're trying to keep a certain status quo or something like that, but it sounds like there are a lot of things like safety, a lot of things like maybe the mental health of the flight instructors, of the students, that is in jeopardy because this person is not managing things very, I wouldn't say efficiently, perhaps they were very efficient, but maybe not so effectively. And it's just not conducive for a good flight learning environment, in my opinion anyways. But I was very surprised to hear this. And this was actually, I heard this from many different students, some who are currently attending. I also heard from some students who had attended years ago, and apparently the management hasn't changed in that time. So just something to keep in mind. Again, take this with a grain of salt. This is just the views of a few people. Whether or not this is really the case or it's really as bad as this, I'm not too sure. But for me personally, as someone looking for flight schools right now, I'm definitely taking this to heart. So as always, this is, I'm just trying to find out information here. This is not meant to put down the flight school in any way. This is not meant to discourage you if you're interested in this flight school. I think if you're interested, you've gone there, you meet a really great instructor, and you like the fact that you can book planes more often, and maybe it seems like maintenance is on the ball, definitely go for it by all means. But yeah, I'm finding it very helpful. And if you want to do this as well, if you're in my boat, you're a prospective flight school student and you want to learn about these different schools, go on Facebook, go onto the BC General Aviation Facebook group, go to the Flying Canucks Discord, talk with people. There are students there, flight instructors, there are people in the community who've been to these places who can tell you about their experiences. And for me, that's super helpful because I went into a lot of these places in person. And when you're visiting a place in person and you ask them all the questions that I ask, almost every place is going to give the best possible answer. They're all going to give almost something along the same lines with a few minor variations. So just keep that in mind. And I hope that you have best of luck finding a flight school in Vancouver. I still have a few more videos to do here. And, if more people come out, I meet more students from other schools, or you're interested in some other schools and you happen to know some students who'd be willing to talk to me, please let me know. I'd love to do more videos, and for 2021, give a decent review of all the schools to help all the students find the school they're looking for. Once again, thank you for joining me for my late departure. I'm Adam. I hope you guys have a safe time, a happy flight if you're going up, and I hope that this, once again, is giving hope to everyone here who might think that it's too late to make a late departure, but hopefully I can prove them otherwise. So take care, everyone. See you next time.